Episode 106 of the podcast. This week we're talking about the very first step of training, the very first step of any sort of training, and that is goal setting. Why is goal setting important? We're going to cover that this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. What is the first step for any sort of training? Any sort of training. Any training at all. I want you to think about that first step because it's often missed. Oh, Chrissy, how can we possibly miss a first step if it's so important? So the first step of any training people, training employees, training dogs, any first step is to have a goal. That is, the number one training mistake I see is people don't have a goal. We get locked into the idea of stop doing. He has to know that's not okay. But he also needs to know what is okay, right? That's the part that we can build on. So when we get into this idea of stop doing, we're missing a key component to our training, which is goal setting. Because you know what? You can be incorrect without malice. You can be incorrect without trying to be a jerk. You can be incorrect without even knowing that you're incorrect, right? So we need to think about that as part of training, is that training is building toward a goal. Now, I'm not saying that means be permissive and let the dog do whatever you want. Yeah, well, do whatever he wants, right? I think sometimes when people hear about like setting a goal and that it's not about just correcting behaviors all the time, they start thinking it's very permissive. But I am not permissive as much as I'm building on exactly what I want. I'm working toward a goal, a big picture. What does the behavior look like? What does the behavior sound like? What does the behavior feel like? What exactly do you want? What is your end product? Because if you don't have a goal to work toward, here's an example. If you're trying to do a breed trim without knowing what the final product should look like. Right? Let's say you're trying to do a Schnauzer trim, but you've only ever done Cocker Spaniels. Right? That's going to likely be incorrect. Right? You need a goal. You need to know what a Schnauzer is supposed to look like. That's why we have breed descriptions. That's why we have books with pictures. That's why we go and we ask people who do that breed. That's why we watch videos, right? Because we know as ourselves, when we're trying to learn something, we need a goal. You need a goal. You need to know exactly what you're working toward. I can't do a proper Schnauzer trim if I don't know what a proper Schnauzer trim looks like. Okay, here is another example, and this one's more for just general. I know I tend to talk more toward groomers in this group, but I'm hoping there are trainers out there and owners and everybody else. But trying to teach agility without knowing about agility. Right? It looks like it's just a bunch of jumps and stuff, but what if you're trying to teach agility and you don't know that there's a proper way to enter the weave poles? Well, you might say it doesn't matter, but if your student is going to go on and compete, oh yeah, that matters. That matters a lot. So we need to know what the goal is. What does the end product look like so that we can work toward it? So that we can work toward proper entrance into the weave poles. Right? Now, here's another example, a little bit more mainstream. What if you're trying to get your new employee to answer the phone right? All right? What is your goal? We could sit there and talk about, hey, I don't like it that way. Knock that off. Stop that. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. But how many different ways can you answer a phone before you figure out which one they want? You know, how many different mistakes can you make training agility? How many different mistakes can you make trimming a Schnauzer, right? Think about that we need a goal. A goal. We need to know exactly what we're working toward. Because again, you can be incorrect without malice. You can be incorrect without trying to be a jerk. You can simply be incorrect, or you could even be incorrect and not know. You know, you could put up a schnauzer that you think looks awesome, and it is way off, right? And I'm using a schnauzer as an example because I think that it's one of the breeds that people tend to get really kind of way off. And sometimes it's because owners don't want schnauzer trims. So how often do we actually get to do one that looks really like a schnauzer? So I want you to think about, you can be incorrect. And if you wanted to learn something, you would want to know exactly what the goal is, right? If you wanted to learn how to groom a border collie, you want to know what that goal is, right? You want to know exactly what is expected, right? As dog groomers, we want to know exactly what the owner wants. That is our goal. What does this owner want? How can I put the trim that's in that owner's head onto this dog? That's goal setting. That's goal setting, and that's defining a goal. How can we teach agility, or teach a dog to stop barking, or teach a dog to sit, or teach a dog when to sit, right? We need to have goals. Goals are very important. For instance, when we're teaching heel work, my goal is for my dog to be right beside me in a very particular position and maintain that position if I do right turns and left turns, and if I stop, to automatically sit unless given other instructions, right? That's a goal. That's defined. I have that very clearly in my head so that I can work toward it, so that I can build behaviors that work toward it, so that I can be in a reward and reinforce kind of a mindset. So I want you to think about the various ways that we can think about our goals for our dogs, for the dogs that we are grooming, right? If we want a dog to be on our table and let us touch him all over and do our thing and have loud noises and dogs walking by and people walking by, and to just be calm, right? That's part of a goal. That's already picturing what you want. It's different than don't bite me. I want him to not bite me. I want him to not scream when I pull out the clippers. Okay, that tells you that you need a goal. That's not a goal, right? We want the dog to do something. What do we want them to do? So your goal is a what do we want? It's not a what do we stop? Because I could stop and still be wrong. And we're going to kind of give you another example. If I see somebody brushing really, really hard, it drives me a little bit crazy. First of all, that's how you get brush burn, right? But they're brushing really hard and they're trying to get a freaking mat or whatever. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Stop that. Please stop. Okay. But leaving the mat behind isn't correct either, right? If they could stop, right? They've stopped. Now they just don't go back. Like they don't know how to brush properly yet. So they didn't go back and there's still a mat in the ear, right? Think about that. Stopping a behavior doesn't add any new information about what we do want. And that one's actually kind of common because owners are like, well, you know what? He just screams when I brush him hard, because they don't know they're brushing hard. But, you know, you tell them they're brushing hard and they're like, well, maybe that's why he's screaming. What can you do? Well, you can learn to brush. You can learn to brush your dog, right? So you need to think about, just stopping something doesn't mean you're right. Okay? That doesn't mean that you're now correct. It's not binary. It's not, yes or no. You stop doing incorrect stuff and now you're right. Wow, wouldn't that be easy? I'm just going to stop being incorrect. And now, ta-da, I'm always right. So I want you to be thinking about what a goal looks like, What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And how can we build it? If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Part of why I try to drill in the 3 C's, calm, comfortable, and cooperative, is because as a goal, I think that that's easy for people to understand, to manage, right? Like, is he calm, comfortable, and cooperative or not? And how can we get there? And I think that makes it a little bit easier for most of us. I try to make things as easy as possible to implement. And I want you to think about that as people. When we're learning something new, we want the easy version, right? Like, I want details, but I want them at a pace I can handle to build on my experience level. So I start off with the most basic of things, like calm, comfortable, cooperative. And honestly, I kind of run things through a filter of, would my mom understand what I'm talking about? Now, my mom is a pretty smart lady, but dog training is so far out of the scope of what she can understand that I actually have told her this. I'm like, yeah, I just run it through. Would mom understand this at all? If I explained it to mom, would she be like, oh, well, yeah, he seems a little uncomfortable. Yeah, and she can. So someone who is not a dog trainer, not at all able to understand dog training. I love my mom, but that's not in her wheelhouse at all. But she can understand those goals. She might have trouble figuring out how to then get the dog comfortable, but she can figure out that this dog is not where it's supposed to be. Like, this dog's not comfortable, or this dog's not calm, right? Or this dog's not cooperating, right? She's able to understand that. She might have trouble figuring out what the next goal would be, but recognizing that you're not in the zone that you're looking for is an important part of goal setting. Without having a goal there, you might not know that you're way off target. You might not know. You're like, I don't know, this seems okay. And I'm actually going to use, because we mentioned target, I'm going to use this example too. I started learning archery years and years ago, and I don't play very often, but I have really good form. My instructor taught me really, really good form. Now that means that I can draw back the bow, smooth, glide, and be very consistent. However, without a target, we have no idea if I'm doing a good job or not. Let me say that again, because without a target, we don't know if that nice form is actually resulting in putting arrows exactly where I want them to be. You need a target. You need a goal. So all of that good form could just be sending arrows way off up and to the left, right? If you get a target out in front of you, you might find you're not even hitting the board. You're like up and to the left, right? But all that good form is still important, because then when you have a target, you can start working down back toward the middle of the target, right? So if your cluster of arrows is up and to the left, you can start going, I think I need to adjust this way. That's what goals are for, so that I think I need to adjust this way. So if you have a goal and you have something in your mind about, hey, I want this dog to be calm, comfortable, and cooperative. If you start off with a dog who's pretty calm, comfortable, and cooperative, and then when you turn on the dryer sound, starts wiggling, panting, right? Now we know the dryer sound was when we lost calm, comfortable, cooperative. That's when we went off task. That's when we went off target. That's when we messed up and missed our goal. So how can we address that piece, right? And that's where it comes into adjusting. Because again, with the arrows that are way up high, higher than the center and to the left, right? Now I can adjust. And I might adjust just one thing at a time, right? I might just adjust the sound of the dryer. I might work on that, introducing the sound of the dryer differently, helping the dog be calm for it. I might have just turned it on without even giving him any warning, because, thinking, well, this dog's fine. This is a new customer. He's 8. He's been groomed before. Maybe I just was being a little bit inconsiderate and scared the dickens out of him with a sudden loud noise. But I'm going to take a look and I'm going to figure out where exactly our calm, comfortable, and cooperative stopped and try to restore it. Turn the dryer off. Try to get him calm again. Find out what happened. Like, okay, you try again. And maybe that is making adjustments, like things like a happy hoodie. Help him calm down. Help him realize that this is still safe, that he can trust us, that this doesn't hurt. And, things like dryer sounds, that's really loud. I think we should assume that that's going to be a problem for a lot of dogs. And I think in many cases that sound does hurt, especially if they have like chronic ear problems. Oh my God, can you imagine having like chronic ear problems and like somebody turns on a dryer? I'll tell you, before I started wearing ear protection during grooming, because I've made all the mistakes. But back when I used to still not wear ear protection, I was working in a boarding kennel and around the dryers. So if you weren't under the dryer, near the dryers and the dryer sounds and the shop vac, you were also like in a cement room with dogs barking, right? By the end of the week, a friend of mine asked if she could show me, like she was trying to sell vacuum cleaners for Kirby. And she wanted to do a demonstration and freaking hurt my ears. I cannot. By the end of the week, I was like, stop, just stop. Oh my God. So think about these dogs, this dryer sound. Yeah, it might actually hurt. So we need to think about that as, all right, how do I help restore calm, comfortable, and cooperative? Because the dog will tell you when they're comfortable. They'll tell you. They're pretty eager to be comfortable, so they'll let you know. So if we think about that as a goal, then we can make adjustments toward that goal. Make adjustments toward that goal, right? So again, thinking about archery, right? I'm shooting arrows. I have good form. So instead of trying to change everything all at once, that little grouping I've got, all my arrows are going the same place, right? If I work on lowering first and get them all in a grouping just to the left, not up high into the left, but just to the left. And then I work on a grouping that's like to the right, and start sliding that over too, until eventually my grouping is somewhere in the target. Right? That's the kind of thing that we need to think about when we have a goal. But without a goal, you're like, I don't know, good form. I'll go find your arrows out in the woods. We don't know if you had good aim. We know that you had good form. So this is how we adjust our aim. We have to know exactly what we're looking for. And I want you to think about, the dog is going to try to tell you if they're uncomfortable. We want the dogs to be calm. Sometimes dogs are overly silly. So not all being worked up means that they're not happy, but we also need calm for that too. You can't be silly. This isn't silly time. That's a really important one for trainers and for owners and non-groomers to know, is that sharp tools, it's not silly time, right? We also need some calm. Now, I have border collies, and they are silly, happy, goofy guys. If I want calm and still, if I need something very, very still, we work on that. But I don't expect them to be still all the time. Okay, think about the individual dog. Some dogs are going to be still the whole time. Some dogs just are really kind of calm on a grooming table if we just think about what we want from them. But the mindset of making them stop, that's not really a target either. That's sort of like, don't shoot into the woods. Hey, get your arrows out of the grass. That's not the same as having a target. That's not the same as having a goal. That's knock that off. Knock that off. Knock that off. Stop that. No, bad, bonk, whatever it is, quit, all of those things, those are different than having an actual goal. And I know I come from the positive reinforcement crowd. I get that. And I'm very, very slanted toward that because I would rather build the exact precise behavior that I do want than waste a whole bunch of time telling a dog how disappointed I am in them and the way they're acting. because it's not going to help them be comfortable. Now, I will say, the other side of dog training, it's kind of not true that it's actually two groups. Most of us are someplace in the middle, but there's the positive reinforcement crowd, and then there's the balanced trainer crowd, right? Balanced trainers are also working toward a goal. So if you guys think she's saying this because she's new agey, wishy-washy, that's not true. A balanced trainer is still working toward a goal, just that what makes them a balanced trainer is that they don't have anything against using appropriate use of a punishment. So they're likely to tell you, yeah, go ahead and tell him he's not allowed to do that. And now work towards your goal. Right? Oh, I know. You were really, really hoping, someone out there at least was hoping that it was going to be fine to say, knock it off all day long and never teach them. But that's not dog training. That's not dog training. So I want you to think about there's always going to be a goal. And we have to think about what we want. What does it look like? Right? For me, it looks like a dog who lets me reposition them, because most of the time it's going to be a stand on a table, but you know what? Sometimes I might let them sit. Older dogs, wobbly dogs, dogs with bad legs, yeah, I don't mind if they sit, but I want to be able to reposition them. Cue a sit, cue a stand, turn them around, lift their head. I want them to be comfortable with touching all over. Those are things that are part of my goal. And modern dog training is all about seeing exactly what you want and working toward it. So balanced trainers, the whole spectrum of dog training, we're all thinking goals. So anybody out there who's thinking, oh yeah, well that's just the reinforcement trainers talking like that. No, it's really not. I have great respect for my training colleagues who have other opinions and who use other methods. We're all thinking about what exactly do we want. Because telling a dog exactly what you want is how we're going to get exactly what we want. And I want you to think about that. Right? We have to communicate with the dog, not just tell them how bad they are. Why? Because it leads to stress and it leads to frustration, and it's never, ever, ever going to help them be great for grooming, right? We're about creating great grooming dogs here. We want to teach them to be great. They're not born that way. We need to teach it. All right, some dogs might be born that way, but most of them are not. We need to teach it. So the first step of any training, anywhere, for anything, is to have a goal in mind. And I'm not saying you need to sit down and write a training plan, which, by the way, I'm terrible at. I'm more of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of a girl, but to have a goal in mind, because then you can work toward it. Then you can make the smaller steps toward it. And you might think that putting on a happy hoodie for a dog who's worried about the dryer would just be a Band-Aid. But what if putting the happy hoodie on them makes them comfortable enough to become comfortable with the dryer? Oh, right. You just made it easier for them to be comfortable with the dryer. You didn't put a Band-Aid on it, right? You didn't just make the problem go away, because they could still be all worked up, dancing around on your table, still be trying to bite, whatever. But what if we just make it easier for them? Just make it easier, because grooming is weird, right? Grooming is weird. We do weird stuff to dogs. They don't know why we're doing that weird stuff and things to poor innocent little dogs. So having a goal and working toward a goal is really important. And I want you to think about that goal is calm, comfortable, cooperative. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.